We'll see. Okay. Okay, let's see if anybody joins. Nobody joined my earlier class. So, worth it. Okay, so yeah, today, let's see. Quick inventory of what we need to do on Tuesday next week. The FlexFox Froggy assignment is due if you haven't done that. Critique version of the wiki script is due. Okay, it's due at midnight. But that's also you need to include 2 comments on 2 other people's work. Comment each. Pick 2 people and leave a comment. The PDF for prompts. I will get that up. So I will include a PDF in the announcements that's just like things you can ask during critique. Just to give you some place to start when you're looking at our code. When you do upload for critique, you need to upload your entire project directory, okay? Not just your HTML file. An HTML file without CSS and probably images is not going to look right. It's not going to be the way you want it. Did everybody watch the recording from Tuesday? If you haven't, do that. I went through and went back through the project again, just like I did for you guys last week. Some more things. We did a little bit more than what we've done Thursday. Thursday we moved that blue square in the middle of the screen, the pink column. We started with that code, but we took it out and put some text, some images in there, and I showed some basic ways of like grouping, arranging, FlexFox, design and manipulate the page. Okay. Is anybody like super stuck? Not whatsoever. Everybody started. Great. So that's what you're going to work on today. Okay. I don't have any lectures for today. It's just a straight work day. I did get the lectures from Tuesday posted yesterday. I re-recorded them. I forgot to record the first part of class on Tuesday, so watch those if you haven't. Just some basic HTML5 and CSS3 stuff, and then an overview of responsive web design. Just something is the method that we're using to design. You should always use this. There's so many different kinds of devices so many other different kinds of devices that live in the web. Which is no news to you guys. Grew up with it. Yeah, good. Okay. Any questions on anything? No? Okay. If you do get stuck, you can zip your project. You can email me so if you have questions, or even like in the middle of class, don't get up and bring your laptop. Zip it. Say, hey, I'm going to send this to you. If you're on a Mac, you can just AirDrop it. If you're on Windows, which you are, just compress it and email it. Okay. The site should be. Oh, links. We didn't do links. I didn't do links on Tuesday. That's what I forgot. I knew there was something. Okay, we're going to do links right now. Okay. So there's going to be a bit of demo. Soon type. Okay. Yeah, links. Man. A lot of windows here. I knew there was something.
sitting here like in my office going, I don't think there's anything I have to cover today. And it's like, oh no, there's quite a few things we need to still cover, huh? Great. Okay, so this is the project I was working on Tuesday. If we look at it in the web page, this is what it looks like. So this is the basic kind of arrangements that we were doing. We talked about some spacing. There's actually, we could talk more about spacing now. I did do an overview of the inspector tools. Every major browser has this. I'll show you Safari. For some reason I'm shouting. And we'll do Chrome. These are all built on the same foundational technology, same framework. It's called WebKit. So I'm going to grab this link, dump it in here, and grab this link and dump it in here. Yes, fine. Okay, so you can see that they all render a little differently in terms of how it's pretty close, but it is a little different. So look at these. It's not too bad. I'm mostly looking at spacings. Spacings are pretty good. Yeah, they're pretty similar. A tiny bit off, but that's okay. In all of these, if you're using Safari, you actually have to go into Preferences and turn on the Develop menu in the menu bar. It's under the Advanced tab. That will give you the Develop window up here. This just turns on developer tools, and that'll let you right click and go to inspect element, which pops up your inspector. We call this whole thing the inspector. It has a similar layout to the one in Firefox, which is the one I've been showing. I prefer the Firefox one. I feel like it's a little more, I don't know, a little more detailed. Doesn't hide as much from you. As much as I like Apple products, Safari is a bit of a baby browser in my opinion. And then Chrome is the same. Chrome pops up. That annoying console is always in the way. This looks really, really similar to the Safari one. And get a different, more tools. There's other windows you can pop up. I really enjoy Firefox because they have they're showing you filter or styles. They're showing you the CSS, the HTML, and then you've got either your box model or what are all the actual styles and stuff being computed on the page. What changes did you make in? So if you make a bunch of changes in here just to see how things look, there's this tab in the Firefox inspector that summarizes these changes, and so you can just copy those and then paste them into your CSS file. You don't have to always remember. And that way you can update your CSS file. You guys should be screaming in joy right now because this is a big deal. None of the other browsers do this, I don't think. Oh yeah, it changes. Safari does it now too. Yeah, but see how they don't break out styles into its own tab? That drives me crazy. Fonts, you know what fonts are being used. Hey, let's play with the fonts. Let's make them really big. What does that look like? Actually, that's not too bad. Yeah, let's make it really, really small and invisible. So you can play around with that. Line height, squish it. You know, that lets you play with it, and then you look at your changes, and it's like, oh, it made the changes, and where did it put the changes? In the body, because that's where they were in the CSS. We look at Atom. All my font stuff is over here in the body. So it does it here, and then you can just copy it. Oops. Copy it like that. Copy rule, and then come back over here to Atom and be like, boom, rule, right? So here's the thing about CSS. It's actually kind of interesting. You could, functionally, it would work the same to have a different declaration block for each of these rules for the body. It would work the same to do that as it would to stick all of those rules inside one declaration block that's targeted at the body. Just because you have two of these doesn't mean they're going to conflict. As long as these rules here don't conflict with these rules. Does that make sense? These characteristics. So it is way more work than you need to do to break these all out into individual declaration blocks, but that's how flexible CSS is. Okay, it is not a strict syntax kind of language, whereas HTML very much is. That's the big, big difference. Okay, all right. You would never want to do this though. You just copy these and stick it over here. Okay. Oops. There we go, Command S. So anyway, I'm going to use Firefox. That's my preferred browser. Chrome drives me crazy because you have to hold Command Q to quit it. That doesn't make any sense to me. That's my calendar. It's not a web browser. Okay, great. Yeah, so this is what we got to. This is what we ended up with. I do want to kind of mess with some of the spacing here. I think I'm going to add some more margin at the bottom. Push the images down maybe, or maybe here at the top. What I tend to do, what I kind of feel is the best practice, is to find, if I want to add more space between like this subheader, this H3, and this paragraph tag, I'm going to go to the H3, I'm going to add more margin to the H3. Okay, I'm not going to do it to both, I'm just going to add more margin on the bottom to the H3. Okay, so what this looks like functionally is coming to its specific element, so section, ID, pink square, H3. I already have a thing for margin. I have a top bottom value, and then I have a left right value. Well, I'm going to add here. So I'm going to keep that 1 rem on the top, 0 for the right, and then I'm going to add like 3 rem to the bottom, and then 0 for the left. And so that added a bunch of space right there. Does that make sense to everybody? Let's reload this really quick. Let's do that again. So right now I have 2 values written into my CSS. Remember the first value. If you have 2 values, margin and padding will take 3 different types of values, 3 different ways of writing value. Okay, if you just give it 1 value, it applies that 1 value to all sides. Everything in HTML and CSS is a box model. Okay, it has a top, it has a right, it has a bottom, it has a side, 2-dimensional box. Everything is, even if it doesn't look like a box. So you give it 1 value, it applies that value to all the sides. You give it 2 values, it applies the first value to the top and the bottom, because it considers those a group, and then it applies the second value to the right and the left. It considers those a group. Okay. Now the third way of doing it is to give it 4 values. That's why it's confusing sometimes. And what you're doing then is you're giving a discrete value for each side. And it always goes clockwise. So and it starts at the top. First value is top, second value is the right, third value is the bottom, fourth value is the left. Clockwise. Make sense? Okay, great. Yeah, so we'll do that, and then we'll say 3 rem, and then we'll say 0. So that adds some space there. You know, whatever, it's fine. Great. I talked a little bit on Tuesday, in Tuesday's video, about how difficult it is to do text wrapping. Text wrap is difficult and it's not difficult at the same time. It's very weird. We're not going to even try to tackle it right now. We will do it at some point. Your best bet if you're confronted with the need for text wrap, so say I had a bunch of text and it just sort of like ends and there's a big giant ugly white space on the side of my image, my recommendation for that is never have a vertical image that isn't also paired with something on the right. When you're looking at, we'll just go to The Verge. When you're looking at other websites and how they do this stuff, you know, they have their headline and their secondary headline and their byline. That's all like this 2/3 of the column that's in a group that takes up 2/3 of their main column here. And then they have this, sort of breaking that out. But notice their images go all the way across. These images over here, they have broken up like this, and they stay over there, which is really nice. See how the text is just sort of changing itself? Notice how the images are popping. They're not scaling smoothly at all, they just pop in. Do you guys notice this? Look at this, see how they pop, right? That popping is indicative of media queries being used. So these images are not actually responsive images, okay? A responsive image would change relative to the browser dimension changing. See how the column is getting smaller and squishier? It's really the negative space that is disappearing. It's this margin space when we do this. That margin space disappears, right? Nothing else is reflowing. That image isn't getting smaller or bigger, just the margins are going away, right? So that means that everything in here has a discrete size. It's told to be a specific size, a specific pixel value, okay? Not relative to the browser window. That's one of those ways you can know. And that actually looks pretty good because they want to control the layout. They want to control the design as much as possible. So what's going on here is these are probably grouped either in a flexbox group that's next to this grouping of text or something like that. And then it's all told to be a certain size, and then as you get smaller, you can kind of see it. It just stays that size. And then, oh, here's the big pop. All right, big pop when we get down to like phone dimension. Actually, how big is this? Let's try on a ruler. This is 717 pixels, so that's about a phone. That's a little bit bigger than most phones' resolution. But then your images become full width images. And this full width image design is actually the better way to handle this. Notice too, all of these images are horizontal images. They're not vertical images. Everything in here is horizontal. Let's see if we can find a vertical image. What does this look like? Video. Oh, I don't know if we'll find a vertical image. Horizontal. Horizontal. You're gonna see a lot of horizontal images. Man, one way to get around some of these design issues is to never have vertical images. That's what they're doing. So yeah, everything here is a horizontal image. I mean, they're just not even dealing with it. This design we see here with this big image and then the headline underneath that, this is called a hero image. Okay, and it takes up 2/3 of the vertical height. Right, that's a really common design element. If you did the reading, there is I think it's in the reading. Let's check actually. 2. Sorry. Let's see. Reading. None of this is reading. There's the reading. Oh, okay. It's not this week's reading, or not this batch of reading. I think it's the next one. Yeah. In our next reading assignment, we'll read this article about every website looks the same, and that's okay. Like, there's a reason why most websites look the same. There's a basic template, and this template is hero image and then banded kind of banded sections, and all of that is sort of described. And here it's sort of implied through these horizontal images that breaks up the text. So anyway, yeah, so avoid as much as possible the vertical images, which I'm using here. So one thing we could do is I could replace those really quick. You may not have a choice with the ones you got from your Wikipedia article, but if you don't have a choice, then my recommendation is to take those images and just make them. So I'm going to take that one. Actually, let's find where they are in the CSS and just make that 100% of its parent. Oops. Oh, right. So these are in a group together. So if you've done Flexbox Froggy, you should know that image group, I have flex on it, but there's 2 things in it, and both of those things are trying to be 100% of the parent, right? But they can't be, so they just get as close as they can. So they're both being 50% of the parent. But if I do want them to be 100%, I want to keep them in a HTML grouping like they are, then one thing you can do is on their parent turn on flex wrap. So flex wrap, and then we say wrap. No wrap is the default, and no wrap is what keeps it side by side like this and squishing instead of making it stick to that 100%. So it's what it's doing is it's making the parent's dimension take precedence over the child's dimension. Does that make sense? Okay, so it's saying, well, these two can't be any bigger than the parent's 100%, and they're not allowed to go to a new line, so they're going to just be as close as they can be, which is that 50%. Yeah? Okay. You turn on wrap, and it's like you're giving permission to make a new line. You're saying, well, I can push that parent down to the next line, so now the child's dimension takes precedence over the parent's dimension, in a sense. It just makes that child's dimension really important. So if I refresh this, boom, then we have our 2 images. Okay. And then if you want to add more space, you just add padding at the bottom to this one. You'd say padding, and you can just do padding and put in your values, or you can do padding bottom and target it specifically. I sometimes find it easier to just do padding and then go like 0, 0, top, right, left. We'll go like 2 rem and then 0. And that gives me that spacing. That's probably too much spacing. We'll go 1 rem. Something like that. Okay? So that gives you your big images. That's fine. But let's talk about links. That's what I wanted to talk about. So in a lot of your Wikipedia articles, let's do Wikipedia. I don't know what this is. It's a butterfly. All right. In this Wikipedia article, you'll see all these blue words that underline whenever you mouse over them and give you these previews, these pop-ups. Now, these pop-ups are something that Wikipedia does. That's not default behavior in a browser. But this this underlining and this coloration to indicate a link, these are all external links, that does tell you that is default behavior for a browser. That tells you that this is a hyperlink, okay, and then it's an external hyperlink, right? There are internal hyperlinks, and when I mouse over these little endnotes or these citations, right, you can see the citation that it's referencing gets highlighted down there. Again, that's a styling that Wikipedia has. It's not default behavior, but the functionality of clicking on it and then having this move up to the front or to the top of the page, that is default behavior. Okay, that's an internal link. That's you creating a link that then points to something on the same web page or the same HTML file. Okay, an external link is a link that links to something outside of that HTML file. Okay, it can be something in the local resource directory, so like the images folder or the CSS folder. It can be another web page entirely on a different computer. Make sense? Okay, I'll show you how to do them. Pretty easy. So we'll take like this section here. We're going to turn this into a link. So this is our anchor. Anchor is the tag we use to make external and internal links. So you just hit A and then you go tab. And then you're given this autocomplete stuff. We need to take the end tag and put it at the end of whatever text we want to be a link. This, the stuff inside the quotes is the path to wherever we want to link to, okay? If you're doing an internal link, the way to do this is to point it at the ID of something else on your page. So in this instance, I would want to point it at my ID tiny for this image. I'm going to have it pop down to that second image. So I'm just going to leave it here. It's going to say ID tiny. That's an internal link, okay? So then we'll pick this for an external link. Grab your last bit there, put it wherever you want it to end. And then we're going to have this just go to https google.com. Okay? All right, save that. Under page, refresh it. Now you see how they're nice and blue. We click on this one, it should pop us to that image. Great. And if we click on this one, it should open up Google. Great. Does that make sense? Okay. So when you're doing your Wikipedia pages and you have these internal links, these little footnotes, you need to make them pop down to the references because you got to include your references, you got to include your external links. In the instances where it does stuff like this and it's linking to a different Wikipedia page, link to that Wikipedia page. Keep your links consistent and make them the same. Okay? As what they were. Yeah.
So, should I use a less big Wikipedia than I did?
Probably.
Okay.
Do you have a lot of references?
Yeah.
I think the one in the tutorial I'm doing has like 32 references.
Does it matter if it's too short or only?
I'd rather it have more pictures. Yeah, you need like at least 5 sections and 3 pictures. Or 2 pictures. I guess you can go with 2 pictures. I use 2 pictures. What are you using?
I'm using the Wikipedia page for urban
How many references do you have?
That page has 14.
Do 10. Do 10. They go fast. Another thing about styling, you can actually style the this subscript or superscript. Okay, superscript is a style you can do, but let's check. Let's go. I think it's an element. So let's go HTML superscript Mozilla. If you just put Moz at the end of a query about HTML or CSS, it will look through Mozilla's stuff. So it's SUP. So if I want to add a superscript indicator, say like right here, I'll go SUP, whoops, SUP, superscript, I'll stick the number in there, take the space out, and then maybe like, you know, wherever you have your script, your superscript link, you could then make that a link. So then you would also go superscript, and then you would nest the link in there. Don't forget to change where your end tag is, your closing tag. See how that's nested? So your superscript, your anchor tag, closing superscript. And what that does is it turns that one, oops, gives me a 1 right there. It's a little hard to see. Let me make the font bigger here. Makes that 1 into a superscript, and then makes it a link. It's a dead link right now. It doesn't go anywhere, but essentially the same thing. Yeah.
You want me to do all of them? Or just...
Do at least 10. Yeah. Yeah, if you have a lot of references and a lot of external links, do at least 10 of each. Okay? That makes sense to everybody? Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, so links are pretty simple. So yeah, you should do that for your links. Are there any questions over this? Anybody? No? Okay, great. Spend the rest of the time working. I'm going to stop the recording here.